In international relations, what would you consider the most important bilateral relationship in the world? I would argue it should involve the two biggest global powers, and as things stand today, that means the US and China. The countries do not seem to like each other. They keep making hostile moves against one another, but the US and China still try and maintain some stability. It's not an out-and-out conflict just yet. There are multiple reasons for this, and here is one of them.
I'm looking forward to this afternoon, this evening, and tomorrow, where we'll delve into a wide range of issues, including issues on which we agree and those issues on where there are still differences that we need to manage effectively and substantively. And it will be, I think, a very productive round of conversations.
That is the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He landed in Beijing this morning. He's meeting China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi.
The China-U.S. relationship is critical to both countries and has a bearing on the world. Over the past few years, the bilateral relations have gone through twists and turns. I hope, as always, the communication will remain strategic, but also substantive. And of course, at the same time, constructive.
Wang Yi said the US-China relationship has gone through twists and turns. Well, that's downplaying it. The countries don't see eye to eye on any issue. Let's go through the major flashpoints, starting with the Ukraine war. The US supports Ukraine, China supports Russia. Beijing opposes and ignores Western sanctions on Moscow. It helps prop up the Russian economy and military-industrial complex. So obviously, the US has an axe to grind. China, on the other hand, has an issue with US trade policy. The Biden administration has banned advanced computer chip exports to China. It has tried to slow down China's technological advancement. Washington says it's a national security issue, but Beijing sees this as a trade war. That's the second major issue between them. The third issue is the most important to China, and that is Taiwan. China sees Taiwan as part of its territory, even though it has never governed the island directly. But China has vowed to reunify Taiwan with the mainland, using force if necessary. The US, however, supports Taiwan. It provides weapons and military training to the island's forces. This is China's biggest problem with the US. Beijing accuses Washington of meddling in its domestic issues and encouraging separatism. That is the third and arguably biggest flashpoint between China and the US. Now let's come back to the meeting between Jake Sullivan and Wang Yi. The two of them are holding talks for 2 days, today and tomorrow. They plan to discuss the points I just mentioned and some other issues, like the drug, fentanyl. Fentanyl is causing an overdose epidemic in the US. China produces the chemicals that are used to make this drug. So Washington wants to work with Beijing to crack down on these fentanyl precursors. Now, this is not the first time that Jake Sullivan and Wang Yi are having a meeting. It's actually the fourth time. They met in Austria's capital, Vienna, last May, in Malta last September, and in Thailand's capital, Bangkok, this January. Across these meetings, the same points have been discussed: the war in Ukraine, the US-China chip war, and Taiwan. These issues have been discussed at length, but they've not been resolved. So expect the same thing to happen yet again. These latest talks in Beijing, will not solve the major issues. Then what's the point of these meetings? Well, both China and the US know that talks do not resolve anything, in fact. But both sides still believe that they're useful. They allow Beijing and Washington to put their points across, try and correct any misunderstandings, and work towards cooling down tensions. And these talks are a great example of back-channel diplomacy. Clandestine talks between rival nations aimed at keeping tensions from rising further. That is the true purpose of Jake Sullivan's visit, to try and prevent any surprises in the next few months. The US is heading for elections. It will pick a new president this November. The last thing Joe Biden and his Democratic Party need is some sort of flare-up with China. Jake Sullivan will try and ensure that there are no surprises. He might also try and arrange for a meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping, but again, don't expect any concrete results from the meeting. The Sullivan-Wong talks, the US-China back channel, is not about solutions. Its real purpose is preventing existing tensions from exploding.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making First Post 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for a future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on First Post America.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies